Welcome to the 21st Century Writer podcast, where we talk about writing, publishing, and most of all, the mindset you need to flourish as author in the 21st century. My name is Hannah Steenbock. I'm a German author, coach, and EFT practitioner, and my partner in crime is...
I'm Diane Patterson. I'm a novelist and blogger out here in California. And two similar and yet completely dissimilar mindsets. It's kind of interesting, we hope. So
And
before we get
today,
to our topic, yes, our topic for today is the poverty mindset. What is it with writers and money already? But before we get into that, because who doesn't like a good chat about money? Hannah, what has been up with you in the past
well,
week?
I've got a taste of the author's life. I found some more reviews, and not all of them were absolutely over the moon. Let me put it that way. And that is
First
life
time I got a
as an
one-star
author.
review, I went out and celebrated with people. Just FYI.
Well, I got my first 2-star one, and it was actually constructive and well thought out. And I'm not even, I'm not angry. I'm just sort of like, oh, how did that happen? But of course, there's always this nagging self-doubt ready to creep in, and that's why we do mindset work.
Yes. So Hannah and I were discussing this a little bit before we went on the air, and we think we're going to discuss reviews and feedback next week because it is such a huge part of what we face as writers, particularly writers who actually want to put our work out into the world. So yes, there's going to be a lot more on this topic next week. I suppose we could have swapped them, but okay. Yes, this week outlining and feeling pretty good, feeling pretty solid about my outline now. There's one thing left that I absolutely have to work out before I start writing. My impulse is to go with a MacGuffin. There's something that everybody's looking for in the novel. And a MacGuffin is a term I think Alfred Hitchcock used at first, which was something everyone's looking for that no one actually cares about. So in Casablanca, they keep talking about letters of transit. Letters of transit don't actually exist in the real world, not now, not back in World War II. It's a meaningless thing, but everyone keeps talking about the letters of transit. Or in Notorious, Hitchcock, there's something that Ingrid Bergman is looking for at Cloud Rain's house. Something at the plutonium or something. I even saw that movie like multiple times in film school. Can't remember what she's looking for. Anyhow, nobody cares what she's looking for, right? That's not the story of Notorious. So, but I don't want to do that. I want to come up with something extremely thematically consistent with the novel. So I need to work on that some more. Other than that, I'm feeling pretty good about things.
That's great.
Yeah, so that's been my week. What else has been? Well, I guess the slightly big news in the world of publishing, not self-publishing, but publishing this week, sort of fits in with our topic this week. Last week, we talked a little bit about John Scalzi's deal with the $3.4 million for 13 books. And then this week, in a surprise announcement, what is the name of the publisher? Do I even have that open? Wow. I just opened the Time magazine article about this, and the publisher doesn't even show up in the first couple of paragraphs. E.L. James has published a new book, which is the story of 50 Shades of Grey told from Christian Grey's point of view. It's already at the top of the charts at Amazon and Barnes & Noble and everywhere else, meaning that a woman who made a whole bunch of money from 50 Shades of Grey is about to make a whole bunch more. There were a few things said about this in writers' communities this week. regardless of where you fall on what you think of the 50 Shades of Grey book, the 50 Shades of Grey phenomenon, or what that opened up for writers. And I know a number of writers who have become millionaires in the wake of 50 Shades of Grey because of the audience desire for more books along those lines.
Hmm.
What? Talk to me, Hannah. What's going on with these people? Is it simple envy? Is it simple envy about the money? I don't think it is.
No, I think it goes deeper. I really think it goes deeper.
They're really ascribing making a lot of money to this must be bad.
Yes.
And of course,
and
it's
that's
easy
because
to do that because of the genre it's in. Absolutely.
Obviously, I mean it's very easy to diss that and call it smut or whatever. But I think there's this concept or idea in Western culture. I don't know if it's in other cultures, but I think it's in Western culture. This idea of the starving artist, this idea of the poor poet. And in German, we have a saying that art is breadless, meaning you can't even earn enough bread to live on by doing art. And it's really a saying. We say brotlose Kunst, which means breadless art, literally translated. And I think it is a concept that appeals to many people because there's this romantic aspect of suffering turning into beautiful art. And personally, I think it's a horrible thing. And it's a very bad belief to have in your in your set of beliefs, because it does two things to you when you're an artist, when you're a writer. First, it sort of gets you into the mindset that you have to experience hardship in order to be a good artist. that somehow hardship and creativity is connected, and hardship is the prerequisite for creating extraordinary beauty. And so either if you don't have hardship in your life, you either can't be a good poet or a good writer or a good painter, or, which is even worse and which goes into the woo direction and into the law of attraction thinking, you might, if your desire to be a good artist is big enough, you might even start creating hardship in your life in order to fulfill the prerequisite of being a good artist. And either is not really helpful in order to be successful. And face it, being an artist is not a job like any job, but it's something that should be paid well and where it's quite possible to be successful without having to struggle financially or health-wise or any other way.
There definitely is a link in our culture, and you say Western culture, so I'm guessing you have it there in Germany as well, that you have to work for every dime all the time.
Yes.
That there's never a moment when you should, be able to ease up or smell the flowers. And this is really, again, as I've mentioned before, I'm in Silicon Valley where people make some ridiculous quantities of money. And there seems to be, it's okay for businessmen to make a lot of money. That's okay to a certain point. And I don't know what that point is, but at that point, people are like, well, why doesn't he give his money away?
Yes.
Wait.
Because money stinks.
I believe absolutely, as the quote from the Bible says, the love of money is the root of all evil. I'm actually totally down with that. I've seen people pursue money and do some really terrible things. But it's not, there's definitely an upper limit to what people will accept. It's higher for businessmen,
Yes.
but it exists anyhow.
But I think as the artist population or community or whatever you want to call it is special in that mindset that basically it is a badge if you're poor. It is part of the identity, or it could be. I mean, there are plenty of artists who don't have that mindset, but those who do, they might even wear it as a badge. Like, look at me, I'm so poor, because that's when my creativity soars. And I think that's it's ridiculous. I mean, there's so many poor and sick and old people in the world, and they're not necessarily churning out novel after novel. So there's really a disconnect.
I could believe that if you're on the edge of poverty all the time, I mean, I would imagine that your emotions are heightened, at least your emotions about money.
Yes.
I don't know, do you experience the world more fully? Is there something about earning money for what you do that insulates you from experiencing the world?
I honestly don't think so. I think people who struggle financially experience stress more than anything else and worry. And I do not believe that is productive for creativity. I really believe that in order to be creative, you need a relaxed mindset. You need to be able to daydream about your characters, about your story. And you can't do that if you don't know where the next meal is going to come from.
I have met a few people on writing boards for whom writing has actually gotten them out of not knowing where the next meal is coming from, interestingly enough. And the way that they did this was by treating it like a business.
Yes. Yes.
That's why they call it show business, folks, and not show art.
And I think, see, that is the shift in mindset. It's if you treat writing as a business, it loses some of that romantic luster, but it gains
that I should
a
be able
lot
to
of.
dream up anything I want, anytime I want, and
Yeah.
there
But
should be no link to, yeah.
if you treat it as a business, I think it gets a lot more solid. It gets a lot more grounded.
Mm-hmm.
And writing can easily take off if you use that as a foundation. And if you say, okay, I schedule my writing hours. I'm bad about scheduling writing hours, by the way. But if it's a business and you really get into that mindset, I'm sure that as author you'd be more productive. You would make decisions from a return of interest
Mm-hmm.
kind of thought. Like you would schedule promotions knowing you'll get more out of them than you spend for them.
Right.
That kind of stuff. You can't do that. You can't even think in that direction if you're stuck in the mindset of I have to be the starving artist in order to create art.
Right, because for one thing, you're going to have to devote that much more of your time to your day job because you need to eat. Nobody here is saying you don't need to eat. It's going to be very hard to schedule your art into your week.
Yes.
And you and I both know people who are like, well, I'll start the writing next week when I find time.
Yes.
I'm here to tell you, as a stay-at-home mom, you find the time when you schedule the time. It is easy to fill up every single minute of your day with other stuff.
Yes.
You don't say, this is the time. But I also know people who, not just for themselves, and the idea of earning money is a practice.
Yes.
Out in the real world too. I mean, there are a number of people who get to, manager making $50,000 a year or whatever and says, well, that's what I do. And that's as far as they go.
Mm-hmm.
But I know some writers, and I try not to associate too much with these people, who are actively not just resentful, but disparaging of other writers who make money,
Yes.
who say, well, if you make a lot of money, like E.L. James, like J.K. Rowling, like Stephen King, you must be writing crap.
Yes. If you're writing fast and if you're
I'm
publishing
not
a lot.
making any money, therefore I must be writing high art or something. I don't
Yes.
know
It
exactly
must be
what's going on there,
literature.
but
Must be better. I must be writing better stuff than those who make a lot of money because they can't be good. It's like twisting around this mindset of the starving artist, because if someone is making a lot of money with their art, they can't be artists because they're not starving. So this is very circular logic and very
instead
very
of
damaging.
instead of looking at it as how do I reach not all the people, some people with my writing, making it accessible to some people who might enjoy it, uh, they're not working on and I don't believe that you should write things for the vast majority of humanity to enjoy. I don't even think you can do that.
Yeah.
I do think it's possible to say, okay, how would this be taken by the vast majority of the audience out there, or some portion of the audience? You know, if I tried my hand at erotica, I understand that I probably would not make any money at this. It's not a skill set of mine. And that's okay.
Yes. I mean, on the one hand, I really think we should write authentically, things that excite us, things that make us happy, and I think that authenticity is important for gaining a, fan, a fandom or a following of readers. Or I mean, they need to be able to feel the heart blood that you put into your work. So I'm not saying artists don't have to work hard and artists don't have to. I mean, they need. I need to access my emotions in order to write a good story. I need to be able to cry and laugh at what's going on, even if I write it myself, and then I know my readers will feel the same emotions. But I also think that's different from the concept of the starving artist. I don't think you can connect the level of art to the level of income. I think they're two different things.
I think they're completely orthogonal. I don't think they cross at any point. I think that
Yeah.
there's, you know, no income, lots of income. There's, and what is, what is good art anyhow?
Yeah.
That's, I mean, that's a really difficult continuum to talk about. Value judgments. Is art better because it reaches more people, or because you use a higher level of vocabulary, or because you don't tell the story from A to B, you decide to mix it up with the rest of the alphabet before getting to B? I mean, whatever. Yeah, I think a lot of writers, maybe we're just talking about people in general, but definitely a lot of writers confuse quality, quantity, and income.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I
And there are
personally
go ahead.
go ahead.
Oh, well, I was going to say there are people who say, okay, E.L. James is writing a BDSM romance, I don't know, a billionaire romance, um, and is making a lot of money. People want to read that. I'm going to write that and therefore make a lot of money. And I know people who've done that. They've been very deliberate about doing that, and they have made a metric buttload of money. Be very deliberate about that. Sometimes they enjoy it. Sometimes they get burned out on it. But you can make a deliberate choice about what you write about. Hopefully it intersects with something that you're actually interested in writing about. But you're a writer.
And it's
You
a
should be able
business.
to write about whatever.
I think really what needs to intersect is, I love the way you said that. is, even from a business standpoint, you need to find the meeting ground between your interests, your joy in writing, and what the readers want, and that's when you get into that making metric tons of money area.
Yes. I think that if it interests you to sort of crack the formula on how to write one of these billionaire romances, you know, God bless, there's a huge audience out there for it. You go be you.
Yeah.
And yet there's still a huge prejudice. Prejudice, is that the word I'm looking for? Oh, well, that's not real writing. It's as much writing as anything else is. What do you think is real writing?
Yeah. Yeah. And again, there's people who confuse real writing with creating art. Oh God, I'm. Oh, that sounds horrible. I'm not saying writing is an art. I have run into literary types, and there's this kind of thing going on that the more difficult it is to understand a story, the more literary it is, and the better art it is, and that is again one of those damaging mindsets because, let's face it, literary authors have a lot fewer fans than genre authors, and so again, there's this thing. Literary is more arty, or I don't want to say artsy, but it's more art like because it doesn't bring in as much money, and there you have this stupid mesh again of money and art, and it's just so weird because it just messes up the entire process of writing.
Well, it's really interesting. The major book review section in America, yes, we still do have a few. The major one is the one for the New York Times.
Yes.
And somebody did an analysis of books reviewed by the New York Times over the course of a year, I believe. And if you're white and male, you're golden. Very few slots for anybody else. I actually find that kind of freeing. Okay.
Yeah, it means we don't even have
I
to
don't
worry
need to
about
worry
it.
about your approval. I'm clearly never going to get it. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think the most destructive part of this whole concept of the starving artist is really that it makes people sabotage their own success if they have this mindset. Because you never want to break out of the starving level of income.
Yeah.
If your desire to be a good writer or a good artist is really high and you have this mindset. So in order to be a good artist, whatever that means, and in order to be able to make money, you need to shed this kind of romantic, age-old concept of the starving artist.
You need to shed the idea that to be an artist means that you're going to be poor, that if you're poor, then you're an artist.
Yes.
And anybody who makes money is clearly a business person out to put one over on people. And
Yes.
boy, do you have to let go of the resentment of people like E.L. James, who's making a lot of money.
Yes.
Okay, I haven't read the books. I read a couple of pages of the fanfic that the books that E.L. James's books are based on.
Mhm.
I said, this is not for me. I closed it. That's all I know about her writing. I've heard a variety of things, mostly derogatory about her writing. Okay. I look at those sales in the bookstore. I don't even know when these books came out, 2 years ago or something. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
it's a great book.
isn't it great that there are that many people out there who want to buy books? Still,
Yes.
after all this time, she's selling millions of copies. Isn't it great that there are that many people out there who want to buy books?
Yeah. And it's also another thing to say, well, I say this, and I may have this little moment of, I want that too, which is okay to have, but it can be an incentive to work harder. And I think even though maybe the genre isn't a role model for me, knowing that there is a woman out there who earns millions with her writing, I mean, how great is that? How
Yes.
awesome is that? It just shows me it's freaking possible.
Yes. Do you find, and I haven't read a lot about this, but do you find that envy is a really good indicator of where you should be focused?
I
Or,
think there's two sides to it. Um, if there's this thing, if there's this thing when you where you go, huh? Well, I would really like to have that for myself. Then it's a good thing because it helps you to discover another desire and another wish. But if it starts making you angry and go, green with envy
yeah,
and wanting to defend yourself because you're not as successful yet as this other person, there must be something wrong with this other person because she's stealing the success. Then it's hurting, and then it's dangerous, and then it's an emotion you should not dwell in, um, because I believe that emotions are also crucial to being creative. And if you're in an angry, jealous, um, comparing, and judgmental mindset, you can't really be creative in a way that readers enjoy what you're writing. Does that make sense?
that's yeah, definitely. I mean, there's definitely been things I have been envious of and things that I have not been envious of. Uh, for instance, I was writing this story that some of it takes place on one of these super mega yachts of the
Mhm.
extremely wealthy, and so I was reading up on these boats, which are practically the size of these super cruise line boats. And it's unbelievable how big these boats owned by single individuals can get to. And I was reading about that going, wow, wouldn't that be amazing to have a boat like that? And then I stopped and I went, oh God, think of the upkeep. I said, okay, I guess I'm not really that envious.
It's like,
Yeah, you got
I
to
wouldn't
hire
mind.
people and then you got to keep it clean.
I mean, spending a week on one of those boats would be quite enjoyable, but I wouldn't want to have it,
And then go, return to the owner. Back you
exactly.
go.
Thanks for the trip.
You know, do I want a big fancy house? Part of me does. Part
Mhm.
of me says, well, there's stuff that comes along with that too. So
Yes.
I'm clearly not in alignment with that dream, particularly buying a big fancy house in this area. Ew. Um,
Yes.
that's one of my favorite things to do as I talk to people around the country is look at a real estate website like Zillow and see how much houses cost in their area. I'm like, I could afford the side of a mountain in in their town for the price of a tract home here in Silicon Valley. So, um,
But
yeah,
I
no,
think
I
it does teach about our dreams. And if you really look closer and if you start listening to your heart and be aware of what's going on and what you're thinking, then maybe making or having this deal about 3.4 million and writing 13 books, it could be good, it could be bad. It just depends on what is your dream. And if you want to know the future for the next 10 years and know what your projects are going to be, perfect. if you hate that idea and if you hate being tied to one publisher, it's horrible. and
Yeah.
and
Well,
it's really
I actually
only
thought about what
about
made me envious about that deal. As I
Mm.
said, well, he has written a number, oh God, how many books he said? Like 17 books in the past 10 years. And he clearly has an audience large enough to justify that deal.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's, I mean, I knew John before he'd sold any books. Uh, do I want to have an audience that large? Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
It might help if I wrote 17 books, which I haven't done yet.
We are on our way to that. But see, that's the other thing. You can look at those achievements and say, well, what is the part of it that I would like to have? And having an audience like that would be awesome. Having written and published 17 books would be awesome. I mean, hey, if I can do that in 10 years, wow, I would be so strong and proud and happy of that. And again, if I look at sales and say, wow, they're complaining they're only selling 100 books a month now. And I'm thinking, well, I would like to get there. And so this is this whole comparison thing, but actually really pay attention to your heart when you read the news and find out if writing erotica and billionaire BDSM romance is your thing or not, and then follow your heart, because that's the way to happiness. And most of all, get rid of these stupid mindsets that block you.
Yeah, if your first reaction to something like this is, boy, there are a lot of stupid people out there buying these books, reevaluate. Because anything that depends on any model of the universe that depends on millions of people being stupid over and over and over again is flawed. You're not going to get anywhere. Understand, the world is going to continue to be a horrible and confusing place if that's your answer to everything. Now,
Yeah.
for instance, there are certain political views that I believe very strongly, and there are things that keep happening here in the United States that make me say, what are you people morons? This does me no good at understanding why this keeps happening. And it doesn't give me any tools for changing the situation. So avoid ascribing intelligence or lack thereof to people doing things that you say you don't understand. I would avoid that.
It's this comparison and judging mindset, which is also very hurtful.
Yeah.
Because, and I mean, I think it's natural to compare yourself to others, but it's not necessarily doing any good.
Yeah.
We're being taught that we should compare ourselves to others. I mean, look at all the grades in school, look at the testing. That's where it starts, where people get told you have to reach this kind of whatever grade,
Yeah.
income, size of your house, make of your car, and then you're good enough or not. And that is instilled in us at a very early age. And I think it is also very damaging, because it can lock people in a race, in a very unhealthy race about having more and more and more, and being unhappier and unhappier because they're not listening to their heart.
Yeah. And trying to bring this back to writers, writers, for the most part, are not in competition, particularly with self-publishing. In a world where, for instance, if you write Regency romances and there are only 3 publishers who publish Regency romances, I guess you could interpret your friend getting a deal and you not getting a deal as competition. Maybe, I don't know. But certainly today, if billionaire romances take off like a shot, you and 48 other people can sit down and write a billionaire romance and get it up there in the store. And the audience wants this. The audience wants this in a huge way. It really makes me want to write one, except for the fact that there's just no way. But yeah, no, you're not in competition. You know, nobody is in competition with John Scalzi except John Scalzi for getting those dang books out.
Right.
You know, you want to be a science fiction writer, you rock on with your bad self.
Yes.
And get cracking on those 17 or 13 books, or whichever set of books you want to get cracking on. Yeah, particularly with self-publishing, it's so fantastic. You want to try billionaire romances, go do it. You want to try billionaire science fiction, do it. There ain't nothing stopping you these days.
Let's bring E. Smith back to life. That was billionaire science fiction back in the 1940s or something. If you guys are reading science fiction, it's like the Lensman series and that kind of stuff.
It's funny. I read science fiction, fantasy, mysteries. My husband reads science fiction, fantasy, mysteries. Are the Venn diagram of what I read versus what he reads, there's no overlap. I would read, you know, Michael Connelly and Lauren Henderson and trying to think of who I have on my shelf here, you know, Patricia Highsmith, and he would read P.D. James and John Mortimer. I was reading Jim Butcher, and he would read the Lensman series. It was kind of funny. No overlap at all.
Yeah.
Another thing, there's a huge audience out there looking for different things.
I mean, I don't even know how many billions of people read in English. It's one reason why I'm publishing in English and writing in English, because you could say Germany has about 80 million inhabitants. I don't know about Austria and Switzerland, but they're both much smaller. So let's say we may have 120 million original speakers and readers of German, and then there's, you know, some people all over the world that actually still have, you know, grew up with German as their mother tongue, but they're living elsewhere. So that's the audience for German language books. It's not small, but it's also, it pales against practically the whole wild world. Who can, I mean, there's a big Spanish language growth, obviously, which is the 4th biggest language in the world. And there's probably Chinese, which is the biggest language, which you won't even crack. But English is the biggest market, and there's literally billions of people who read in English. And even if there's 1 million books coming out per year now, or 2 million, people will always read. They will change the format. We might move over to e-readers more than people expect. But I believe people will always read. We as authors are in competition with the TV, with games. We're in competition with
reading short articles on the web, with tweeting.
Yes.
With your friends posting to Google. I mean, there's oftentimes at the end of the day, after spending a day with the web and with writing, where I'm like, oh my, I don't want to look at another word. I'm done with the whole reading thing, even though I haven't sat down with a book and done. So yeah, we're in competition with a lot of things.
But we're not in competition with other books. I really don't believe that, because it's more of a struggle for visibility, but it's not in competition. My dragon stories are not in competition with other dragon stories. Quite the opposite, actually. Because if there's a really awesome dragon story out there and people finish it, they will go look for others.
Give me the next dragon story. Absolutely.
And with a bit of luck, they'll find me. And so my dragon stories will help other dragon stories to flourish. And that's awesome. And that's why I love connecting with authors who write dragons.
Yeah,
Because we
absolutely.
can help each other out, and so it's not competition. It's again, that's another mindset. See how important mindset is for writers in the 21st century.
Figure out what you want to write. Figure out, are you happy with the level of success that you're at? Does your being happy rely on thinking that the readers in general are too stupid to appreciate you? When you find writing, when you find something to read that you are like, oh my God, what happens? What happens? What is it about that book that is so compelling? Can you add that to your writing?
Yes.
Yes, creating something is an art. This is the art of dreaming up people who never existed, saying things that they never said, and doing things that aren't happening.
And
It's
adoring it.
kind of the definition of insanity, actually.
Yep.
And, if you just want to write your stories and put them in a binder or something, honestly, that's okay.
Yes.
If you're writing to be read, you need to interpret the reactions you're getting. And you need to interpret your own feelings on why don't people like my stuff? Oh, I'm making too much money. It's not right for me to charge money for this, whatever.
Yes. I will lose my creativity if I get too rich.
Yeah. Stephen King, I'm surprised, quite frankly, that J.K. Rowling is the first author who became a billionaire, because Stephen King has been making something on the order of $50 million a year for years. He's still
Well,
writing.
as they say in the business world, with the level of your income, your level of spending increases. So you end up with the same amount in savings, which again is a mindset issue, because people tend to have a threshold of the amount of money they tolerate in their lives. So if you have
which is why lottery winners lose it all.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
They don't know how to adapt to being the kind of person who makes or who has that much money. No, actually,
so
Stephen King was kind of interesting about that. He bought a radio station or something, and he's basically subsidizing this radio station. They're not making enough money. And he said, what, you expect me to keep buying radio stations or something? I have my radio station. I'm done.
Yeah. That's cool. I mean, that's just cool. I didn't know he had a radio station and he was helping them exist. I think that's cool. I think that's an awesome thing to do with the money that you earn. And I mean, J.K. Rowling is I think she gave away half of her earnings.
I don't know if it's half, but I know that she gave away enough that she's no longer a billionaire.
Yes, I mean, she gave away lots. And people praise her for it. And again, it's not something I can honestly judge. I kind of like that she gives money to good projects. But even if she didn't, it's none of our business.
There is definitely a link between not having money and moral purity. And I don't know, does it come from our shared Christian background? I'm not going to say Judeo-Christian there, because I don't think it is. I think it's definitely, frankly, a Catholic Church thing.
I think it is older, to be honest, because there's this. I'm not. I have never studied the Bible, but there's this one thing about a camel is more likely to fit through a needle's eye than a rich man, and I think that is the Old
New Testament, baby. That's the
Is it? It is. Woohoo! So that would make it Christian. But on the other hand, I know that in Quran, um, charity is very highly valued. I think there's the idea that a faithful Muslim must give to beggars and give to charity. So um, there's this part of sharing wealth, of not having more than, this sort of this whole fairness idea. It might actually be.
Well, I know in the Jewish religion, and I'm probably going to get this wrong, that there's an idea that not only can you not know who your benefactor is, you can't know who you're the benefactor of.
Yeah.
So if you give money to an organization, you're not supposed to like earmark it for certain people, or I guess name it after yourself. Although I know
Mhm.
there are many people who name things after themselves, and you shouldn't know that the money comes from a certain person, so that you don't have to be grateful to that person,
Okay,
which I find very interesting.
that is an interesting concept. Yes,
Yeah.
but we certainly have a mental connection between purity and being poor or not having money. I don't know.
It's hard to break. It's everywhere, and it's hard to break.
Yeah. And if we have the time, I would like to do a quick EFT round for our viewers and listeners,
Okay.
because that is a good tool to shift mindset issues like that. And basically, an EFT round to give you permission to be a successful and rich artist.
Okay, then let's do the wrap up here, and then people can stay after the end music or not, if you want to do the EFT round.
Yeah, let's do that.
So that's it for this week's podcast of the 21st Century Writer. Join us next week when we discuss reviews and feedback, how to use them, and how to not let them use you. My name is Diane Patterson.
And I'm Hannah Steenbach.
And thank you very much for joining us. If you're enjoying the podcast, please take a moment to go to iTunes and leave us a rating or review. And next week, we'll talk about why that's important, despite the fact that reviews can affect the person who gets it. If you're interested in any announcements or special mailings, please join our mailing list. And there's a link to the list available at www.the21stcenturywriter.com. And that's 21 as a number. Okay, so that's it. Thank you.
And I'm back with the tapping round. And you may know the routine. Certainly just follow me, follow the leader. I'm going to ask Diane to repeat what I say to just help me get the timing right, to give you enough time to actually say the words and repeat them after me. I'm really working hard on not rushing through this, but it's sometimes so hard because the words are crowding in my mouth. So this is a classic EFT tapping round. We start tapping on the side of the hand, the karate chop point, and we're going to say the setup phrase, which we say 3 times, and I'm going to take a lot of breaks so it's easy for you to follow me. Tap the side of the hand and say, even though I learned that a good artist cannot be rich. Creativity and being rich just don't mix. But I'm still a good writer. And I choose to let go of that belief now. Even though this is a really romantic idea. But inspiration and creativity have their foundation in hardness or in hard times. That we need to experience hardship. That wasn't where I was looking for. In order to pour our emotions onto paper. That's an old romantic notion I believe in. And I'm okay the way I am. And I now choose to doubt that old belief. Even though this belief and notion of the starving artist has a certain appeal to me. And I've seen it confirmed everywhere. And on the other hand, I want to be rich. And I'm totally okay the way I am. And I now give myself permission to be a rich, best-selling author. Let's go into the tapping round, starting at the inner eye point, which is where your eyebrows start. This belief about the starving artist. Outer eye point. It is deeply ingrained in our society. Under the eye. It is a story that many of us know. Under the nose. It is also a story that many of us live. Chin point. And it's a story that prevents financial success. Collarbone points. And I'm going to see, there you go, you can see me. This story of the starving artist forces us to choose. And under the arm, oh, I think I left it out. That's Ivan. Doesn't matter. Under the arm. It forces us to choose between creativity and money. And across the wrist. And some of us prefer to choose creativity. Inner eye point, back to the start. And it's sad if we have to choose. Outer eye point. Between income and creativity. Under the eye. What if we didn't have to choose? Under the nose. What if there is no relationship between creativity and money? Chin point. What if they're independent of each other? Collarbone points. What if we could be free to have money and be creative? Under the arm. What if it's okay to be creative and rich? Across the wrist. What if we don't have to choose? Back to the eye point. I give myself permission to be rich and creative. Outer right point. I allow myself to let creativity flow. Under the eye. And earn money with my art. Under the nose. I give myself permission to be rich. Chin point. I can be rich as a writer. And I can still write awesome books. Collarbone points. I give myself permission to be both. A great author. And a rich person. I choose to be both. And across the wrist, final point. I love being rich and a best-selling author. And that's totally okay. Okay, take a deep breath. And that's the tapping round for today.